After talking about controversy in the last video, this year has been surprisingly light on the loot box discussion, but that does not mean that they've gone away. We adults can rant about loot boxes all day long, but it's really not just about us, it's about the kids.
Won't somebody please think of the children?
Buying loot boxes is really easy, and many kids will do it without even thinking, and younger kids won't even realize that they're spending real money which is even tighter this year than usual. Pretty Good Gaming was recently contacted by the Royal Society for Public Health and the Gambling Health Alliance, and they shared some troubling statistics as part of their lidonloots campaign. According to a survey by the Gambling Health Alliance, nearly 1 in 4, 23%, 11 to 16-year-old gamers said that they paid money to open loot boxes, 31% of young gamers said they struggled to keep track of how much they spent on loot boxes, and 33% said they didn't feel comfortable in control of their spending. 1 in 4 gamers spent over £100 on loot boxes on average over the course of completing a single game. 15% had taken money away from their parents without permission to buy a loot box, and 9% had borrowed money they couldn't repay, and 11% had either used their parents' credit or debit card or borrowed money from friends or family to do so. 24% of gamers said they felt addicted to loot boxes, and because of the feeling of being cheated or ripped off by loot boxes, 44% said they experienced feelings of frustration or anger more often than they otherwise would have. These are serious numbers, and I'm sure most of you aren't spending any money on loot boxes because why else would you follow this channel, but clearly a lot of people are. I don't want this video to feel like a lecture to you guys, but if you see or hear anyone defending the practice, just send them this video and maybe they'll change their tune. It's also really important to send it to parents who don't really understand video games and just buy their kids FIFA every year because they're the ones most at risk. Loot boxes account for between 11% and a whole third of annual sales for the biggest offenders like Activision Blizzard, Take-Two and EA, and it's estimated that £700 million are spent on loot boxes just in the UK. According to a research paper by David Zendel of York University, over 70% of gamers played a game with loot boxes on Steam, and 80% played one with cosmetic microtransactions. Loot boxes and microtransactions are so prevalent everywhere because people accept it, saying stuff like, oh, it's just cosmetic, but clearly it's getting worse. FIFA is perhaps the worst culprit of them all because EA are such staunch defenders of the practice.
Surprise mechanics.
According to the Gambling Health Alliance's research, 79% of participants in the survey who play FIFA said that loot boxes, i.e. FIFA Ultimate Team, negatively impacted their experience because of how much you have to pay to effectively compete. In other words, it's pay to win, and you can't win without paying for Ultimate Team packs. 22% of people surveyed revealed they spent over £100 on loot boxes over the course of completing a single game. Many people will be unwrapping brand new games on Christmas Day this Friday, meaning that many more people will be at risk of being exploited by the likes of EA. It's one thing having loot boxes destroying the gameplay experience for adults in games for adults, but FIFA is rated 3+ in the UK. Children as young as 3 years old could be playing it, or rather paying it, without knowing any of the potential risks it poses to their mental development or their parents' finances. Again, finances in a year where everyone has had to tighten their belts a little bit more. We've beaten the dead horse of loot boxes for years on this channel, along with many others, but the numbers shown to me by the Royal Society for Public Health and the Gambling Health Alliance are shocking. Over 1 in 10 gamers got themselves into debt over loot boxes, and apparently 1 even resorted to crime to pay it off. Loot boxes are clearly gambling just as much things like poker or blackjack are, so why aren't they regulated as much? We don't let kids play poker, so why can they open loot boxes? Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying poker isn't fun. I absolutely suck at it and it's still fun for me, but I'm an adult who knows the risks. A child does not, and is often not playing with their money. Most people can gamble a little and be okay, but a lot of people really struggle with it, which is why the addiction is such a problem. Companies like EA and their ilk use loot boxes to deliberately exploit and manipulate people, especially young people. And it's not just me and other YouTubers who cover the same sort of stuff that are on about this. 91% of people surveyed by the Gambling Health Alliance agree that loot boxes are gambling, and 76% say it should be illegal to include them in games under 18. There are so many testimonies about the problems with loot boxes, so why are they still such an issue? They're highly addictive. Since I was 14, they've been a staple part of every FIFA game I've played. I must have spent thousands of pounds over the years, and it all gets restarted every year anyway. I spent over £400 when I was 15 or 16 on my mum's bank card. I spent several thousand myself on loot boxes, which was stupid and irritating looking back. I also had my brother steal £700 of my money for loot boxes on FIFA. Part of the problem is a lack of research and lack of understanding. Much of the research is purely anecdotal and not data-driven because none of these loot box peddlers share the info. No one likes the government telling people what to do, but they should be stopping loot boxes from being put in games for kids. Most people aren't spending loads on loot boxes in one go either. It's steady, small purchases over time. 11% of people surveyed bought loot boxes daily or weekly, and 27% did it monthly. The most common amount spent was between £1 and £5, but over the course of a year, it could be over £200. I don't know about you, but I don't just have £200 to spend willy-nilly without seriously budgeting for it. If I'm spending that much money, it's a very serious consideration for me. But for some people, it's even more severe, with nearly 1 in 10 gamers spending between £11 and £20 a week on loot boxes, making it an annual spend of between £570 and £1,040. This is why we need more concrete data on this sort of thing to really point out how bad this all is. Most games don't even have spending trackers or any sorts of checks and balances to limit excessive spending. These sorts of limits aren't a perfect solution, but they're a step towards the wider goal of eliminating loot boxes altogether. Duncan Stevenson, chair of the Gambling Health Alliance and deputy chief of Royal Society for Public Health, said, "Loot boxes really are the gift that keeps on taking, and I couldn't agree more." EA recently added parental control measures to FIFA 21 where limits could be placed on spending, but this is such a half measure. Yes, in isolation, this is a good thing, but EA has been the slimiest company of them all in trying to get around loot box problems, so this is far from good enough. After this little rant, as well as asking to like and subscribe or whatever, I am going to ask you to share this one time. I never normally ask to share videos because I think it's pretty lame, but for this one, I will break my rule.
Tonight you're gonna break your one rule.
Please share this video with the hashtag lidonloots to make some noise for how bad loot boxes are. As I said earlier, I'm sure you lot already know and won't be buying into it, but there are so many who don't know the problem, especially parents of young kids. The solution to loot boxes is actually really damn simple. Boycott them. Don't buy them. But even then, there will still be some people willing to buy them or let their kids gamble, and we need to educate these people. Loot boxes are bad enough on their own, but being in kids' games is frankly just disgusting. Thank you for listening to my anti-loot box propaganda. Here are a bunch of games from this year which did not feature any loot boxes or dodgy monetization, which you can try instead. I don't even like all of them, and each have their own issues, but there should be something in there for everyone without gambling away your life savings. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you get some good games for Christmas that aren't ruined by loot boxes or bad monetization. You can find a link to the Gambling Health Alliance's document in the description, which I highly recommend you read. Like, subscribe, Patreon, blah blah blah. I've been Henry Cooper, this is Pretty Good Gaming. I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.